Okay, so I'm going to take a break from talking about the HBO series for a second. Everyone breathe a sigh of relief. We can all go back to talking about something that everyone agrees on. How much of a badass Buck Ginny was. Now, Buck Ginny is an absolute legend of epic proportions. Hands down, one of the best characters in the series. Buck Ginny's character development is probably on par with Neville's. In fact, Buck Ginny's is probably more pronounced than Neville's in my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to stop saying Buck Ginny now and just say Ginny. But just to be clear, from now on when I say Ginny, I'm speaking exclusively about Ginny in the books, not the films. Sorry, movie Ginny. Anyway, so when we first meet Ginny, she literally can't speak in front of Harry and she's a shy, timid little girl. By the end of the story, she's a core part of Harry's squad, a really powerful witch and competing with Fred and George for the grand title of the funniest Weasley. So in honour of her, this is 5 times that Ginny was an absolute boss. Stealing Fred and George's broomsticks from the age of 6 to practice flying. So this one's a bit random, but what do you expect? So when Harry is banned from playing Quidditch ever again by the devil incarnate Dolores Umbridge, Ginny takes his place on the team as Seeker, and in true Ginny form impresses everyone with her mad skills. Fred and George comment on how good she is, and Hermione of all people, I know, Hermione and Quidditch in the same conversation, what? Hermione reveals that Ginny has been stealing Fred and George's broomsticks from the age of 6 to practice flying. Random one really, but it just shows that Ginny has had that big wand energy from day one. Getting into the Slug Club. The ultimate golden ticket. You know you've made it in life when you get an invite to the Slug Club. And not just any Slug Club meeting, but the one that's on the train before school even began. Seriously though, you've got to be a someone to get into this club. Or know someone. Or in Ginny's case, be an absolute queen at casting the Bat Bogey Hex. If you didn't know, the Bat Bogey Hex is a spell that makes your bogey sprout little wings and flap viciously into your face. Who even thought of that spell to create it, to be fair? But yeah, it's Ginny's signature spell, which is so cool by the way. Harry's signature spell is Expelliarmus. Just think about that for a second and ask yourself who the real hero of this story is. Anyway, so on the train on the way to Hogwarts at the start of Harry's 6th year, Ginny uses the Bat Bogey Hex on Zacharias Smith and Slughorn sees it. So naturally, rather than giving her detention, he invites her to his carriage for the first Slug Club get-together on the Hogwarts Express. And he obviously likes her because she then gets invited to every single Slug Club meeting and party from then onwards. What a queen! Especially when you consider that Ron spends the whole year being salty about the fact that he hasn't been invited to any Slug Club parties. Ginny gets automatic VIP status without even trying. Big up Ginny. Right, if you've never read the Half-Blood Prince book, you won't know that Ron had a mean girl era just before meeting Lavender Brown. The nerves were getting the better of him on the Quidditch pitch, and he was salty that everyone was getting some apart from him. And by getting some, I mean that Harry had kissed Cho, and Hermione had apparently kissed Crumb, which is really weird by the way. But anyway, so at this point in Harry's 6th year, Ginny is dating Dean Thomas. One day, Harry and Ron walk into a random corridor and see Dean and Ginny kissing, and Ron hits the roof. He decides to try and publicly shame Ginny for some reason, and he sort of implies that she's a bit promiscuous, shall we say, and suggests that if she keeps it up, people will start saying that she gets around a bit. Which is completely ridiculous and unfair, by the way. Her and Dean were literally in a relationship at the time, and I'm pretty sure she literally only ever had one boyfriend before Dean. Ron's like, oh, I don't want my sister kissing people in public. Like, what the hell, Ron? She's 15, leave her alone. Weirdo. But anyway, I don't need to stand up for Ginny because she absolutely lambasts Ron for speaking to her like that. She goes hard. She says that the only reason that Ron's annoyed is because he's never kissed anyone in his life, and he's jealous because he's got about as much experience as a 12-year-old. She says that Ron's just jealous because Harry kissed Cho the previous year, and Hermione apparently kissed Crumb, and Ron feels left out. Savage. But true. And also he kind of deserved it after trying to shame her for kissing Dean. Which brings me back to the Hermione and Crumb thing, by the way. What is that all about? Crumb was literally 18 at the time of the Goblet of Fire book, and Hermione was 14. Lock him up. Anyway, so yeah, back to the point. Ron had no business criticising Ginny for kissing Dean, and she absolutely did not take it from him and gave him a piece of her mind. Go on, Ginny. Ginny flying into the Quidditch commentators box. During the first Quidditch match of Harry's 6th year, Gryffindor vs Slytherin, Zacharias Smith is commentating in the place of the late great Lee Jordan, who didn't die, by the way, he just left Hogwarts. If you didn't know, Zacharias Smith is an irritating Hufflepuff in Ginny's year. He was actually part of Dumbledore's army in the previous year, but he was really annoying and stuck up and everyone hated him. Anyway, so for some reason Zacharias is commentating. Like, seriously, what is the audition process for this like? And he basically spends the whole match making snidey comments saying that Ginny and Ron are only on the Gryffindor team because they were friends with Harry, who was obviously the captain, and saying that the Gryffindor beaters, Peaks and Coot, weren't muscular enough to be beaters. For some reason, Zacharias Smith seems to just hate all the Gryffindor players, and he was really biased against them in his commentary. Honestly, what a loser. He's like a poor man's Malfoy. Anyway, Gryffindor win the match in the end, and Ginny, as punishment for Zacharias Smith's biased commentary, flies full pelt into the commentator's box, crashing right into him and causing that entire section of the stands to collapse with Zacharias Smith buried at the bottom. Wow. When McGonagall starts telling her off, she just says that she forgot to break. What an absolute boss, don't mess with Ginny. Getting Harry in the end. Ginny played the ultimate long game where Harry was concerned. She was basically in love with him from day one when she saw him on the platform in Harry's first year. This dragged on painfully for her for the next 2 years where she was basically incapable of speaking in front of Harry. She then went through a bit of a rough time in the Chamber of Secrets, bless her cotton socks. Poor Ginny. But the experience changes her. A lot of people would completely fall apart after being possessed by Voldemort. It's not for the faint-hearted. To be honest, I can put my hand on my heart and say if Voldemort possessed me, I would probably fall to pieces. Anyway, so she deals with that like an absolute weapon, and she actually grows in character over the next couple of years. She watches on sadly as Harry fawns over Cho, but holds her head up high and goes to the Yule Ball with Neville. Interesting choice, but why not, eh? Neville's a good bloke. But then, when Harry's 5th year rolls around, everything starts to change. Ginny has grown in confidence and she's gotten older, and she becomes a core part of Dumbledore's army. She takes some quality advice from Hermione and starts to date other people. Firstly, a guy called Michael Corner. The plan was that if she dated other people, she would relax around Harry a bit and he would start to notice her more. And relax she did. She becomes this funny, strong character and is there for Harry throughout the year, which is a very tough year for Harry. When Mr. Weasley is attacked by Nagini, Harry is out of his mind with anxiety, thinking that it was him that did it. It's Ginny that offers him comfort and manages to reassure him, telling him that when she was possessed by Voldemort, she had massive gaps in her memory and kept waking up in places without remembering how she got there, which sounds like my Friday nights to be honest. But Harry realises that this means that he wasn't being possessed after all. She's also there for him when he's upset about seeing his dad bullying Snape in the Pensive, and arranges the diversion with Fred and George that allows Harry to use Umbridge's fireplace in her office to speak to Sirius and Lupin. She's then right by his side at the Ministry of Magic, and by the time Harry's 6th year begins, he's basically fallen in love with her. But when he starts to fall for her, she's busy with Dean Thomas, which makes him want her even more. The grand plan works and they live happily ever after and have loads of babies together. The story starts with Ginny incapable of speaking in front of Harry, and 6 years later, he's completely head over heels for her. Mission complete. So there's actually loads more boss woman Ginny moments, these are just some of my favourites. Book Ginny is and will always be an absolute legend. Movie Ginny fell woefully short, through no fault of the actress I'm sure. And here's to hoping that HBO Ginny delivers well and truly. A lot of people are hating on the HBO series at the moment, but if they deliver the Ginny that we all want and deserve, nobody will be able to say boo to a goose. If you enjoyed this video, drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more.